1, boom!
And we're live. We actually are. I think we got you saying 1.
1. Yeah.
Nice.
And boom.
Yeah.
And boom.
Yeah, can't forget the boom.
And boom.
Yeah.
I'm doing it again.
Oh, okay.
But now I'm doing it on purpose.
Yeah, because you're a bastard.
What the hell?
So how you doing, man?
Yeah. All good.
Yeah.
All good. A bit tired.
Nice of you to get up.
Eventually. Sleep forever is key.
You obviously got your results.
Delicious results. Delicious results.
And now you've just got to write
MSc. Well, I need to sort out some graphs. Got some MSc
right.
MSc project results.
I thought it was all for like a report you were doing.
It's all about.
But you need the graphs to represent the data for the report. Sure.
Yeah, it's all about learning and memory.
Ah,
delicious.
I'm sure I'll be learning about that soon.
Delicious.
I'll be learning about learning.
Maybe not what I'm looking at because it's molecular biology.
Yeah.
But
I'll be more the what would you say? The abstract notions of learning and thinking.
Yeah.
So we've got a slightly different one today.
Oh wait. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you for asking. Can't complain. Just doing podcast stuff and waiting for uni, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's literally all I'm doing.
Soon. It begins soon.
But it'll be a month and 10 days. So very, very soon. All I need is another notepad for biology. And I think that's it. But yeah, we've got a slightly different one. Slightly different episode today about conspiracy theories. Now, the thing with you and I and conspiracy theories is we're very rationally minded people, right? So I have a feeling we'll basically go through all the conspiracy theories that I've got a few notes on and basically go, this is wrong and this is why. But I think maybe there'll be a few interesting things that we can talk about.
I know about 1 or 2 and maybe one that you've not got. Because I don't think you would have considered it.
Okay.
And it links to something else you wanted to talk about.
In this episode?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, not in this episode. In a future.
Oh, in general. Yeah,
oh,
okay. Okay, interesting.
So we'll see if that comes up naturally or not.
Yeah. If not, then we'll save it.
I'll shoehorn it in.
Yeah, just shove it in.
We're like, and my thing.
Yeah. Just really abruptly. Yeah. Just whenever I start trying to start a sentence, just like my thing. So the first one to sort of link in with obviously last week was the first Branching Thoughts episode, but before that we had obviously aliens and life away from the planet with Mike, and then technology. So to sort of try and keep with that theme, starting off with sort of Area 51, Roswell, Nevada, and all that sort of stuff, right? So how much do you know about the whole Roswell Area 51 thing?
Okay, so I'm aware that initially, I believe Area 51 was designed to test aircraft. So they were developing, I think they were stealth aircraft.
Right.
And I think they were testing stealth aircraft there. It's a military facility, basically.
Yes.
That's kind of where it ends. Obviously, everyone thinks that we're hiding. Well,
aliens.
not we're. The US government is hiding aliens there or some kind of other extraterrestrial technology.
Yeah.
But realistically, if the military, let's say some of these claims are based on actual leaks, right?
Like government.
Exactly, right? Let's say you see some advanced piece of military technology that civilians aren't really supposed to know about, because obviously, even though there aren't really large-scale wars
anymore
at the minute, there's still a sort of arms race between different countries in terms of their military capabilities.
Yes.
And no one wants to let on where they are. Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Other than North Korea, who seemed hell-bent on letting everyone know exactly where they were at.
No, I think they're hell-bent on letting people know 2 steps above of where they are.
Oh, sure.
Because
honestly, we have nukes. We do.
Yeah.
Honest.
And then I think they had a test where they blew up their nuclear testing facility.
And that's why they then changed their tune and started being nice to everyone, isn't it? Because they basically killed all their experts and destroyed all their equipment.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But in terms of Area 51, the whole conspiracy started in 1947 due to the Roswell incident, which is basically an alleged flying saucer crash.
Okay.
And that was apparently recovered from the crash site, and the UFO and its inhabitants were taken to Area 51. Both of those, I think, maybe there was a crash, maybe there was some sort of military Air Force test or strategy that was being tried out or something like that. And someone just saw a crash, then saw a load of shady men in suits clearing up all the rubble and went, oh, aliens.
and maybe like I'm saying, maybe because of the style of technology that they're building there, maybe whatever it is did look. Have you ever seen a stealth aircraft? They do look very futuristic.
Not other than in sort of science fiction, stuff like that.
Pretty, a lot of the time.
In terms of like
close.
how they'll, almost like a chameleon, an outer shell that's like a chameleon, where it'll reflect light in certain ways and stuff like that.
Yeah, and sound as well.
Sure.
That's basically, they're designed to do that. So obviously they're very like sleek and smooth ended. To
let air pass over it, so because of sound and obviously light as well. Sure. But then sort of beyond that, people sort of think that there were alien interrogations and dissections. And it sort of goes back to what me and Mike were saying in Life Beyond Our Planet, episode 2, I think. Yeah. In terms of, I think if aliens had come to this planet and they had this sort of technology, we'd just know about it.
It'd be pretty hard to keep something like that quiet.
Yeah, especially if you like have taken aliens into this big base and all that sort of stuff.
Well, think about it like this: how hard is it to keep a secret in like it's kind of a bad example, but like in a secondary school or in a school, right?
Yeah.
Someone finds out and they tell someone else, but they say, "I really shouldn't know this."
Don't tell anyone, and then everyone says that to each other.
They do exactly the same with one person. They do exactly the same with that one person. But then all of a sudden, there's about 20 people who know, and they're all slowly telling people, and it gets exponential.
What would stop someone who used to work there, maybe didn't agree with how things were going, leaving, moving to a different country where they know they can be safe, and then blabbing?
Yeah.
Do you think that if a government, let's use the US government as an example, did find out that aliens did exist, and for example, if there was a crash, do you think they would try to hide that from the public, or do you think they would come out and try to talk about it? And
I think probably the thing you have to bear in mind is the kind of people that are looking for these things, right? So who if we have the capabilities, let's say, because obviously let's assume aliens are out there, they could have really advanced tech whereby we don't have the technology currently to be able to see them coming towards us. Let's assume they don't. Right? The people that are looking and the people that will see a ship coming towards us are the people that would tell us. They're scientists. They're people that do science because they want
astrophysicists who want to find this stuff out, who are almost aching to find this stuff out.
Exactly. They either value the science, or they want to be famous. Yeah. Right? And finding aliens is a perfect way to become famous.
An incredibly huge discovery.
That was a terrible
click.
It was a terrible click.
Yeah. It wasn't percussive in the slightest.
Yeah, no.
But the one thing I sort of read that I think in the context of how it was used probably isn't true, but that you could conceive of is energy weapons. Not necessarily energy weapons. That's why I say in the context of how they were using it, it's highly advanced technology. I think that's reasonable to assume that they're testing and creating in Area 51.
Okay, so I'm just trying to follow your train of thought a little bit. Mm-hmm. What you're suggesting is that if there was anything that had been leaked that would really push people towards that, it would be some form of advanced weaponry that the military are actually developing, but come across appear as though they might be extraterrestrial because of just how futuristic they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that probably makes more sense than anything else, but obviously the fact that it was started by this crash, right? A crash at a military base where they're testing
Did the crash... I probably should have found this out. Did the crash happen before Area 51 was an established military base?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would imagine not. You say it was 1946?
1947 that the crash happened. I'll quickly have a look. When was Area 51 built?
I would imagine they were already testing.
Beginning in the late 1960s.
Really? Okay. So
so about 10 years it had been established by the time that this crash happened.
Wait, you said 47?
Oh, 1960s.
All the way around.
Oh, damn, I was thinking 30s, late 1930s.
All the way around.
Jesus.
So, I guess then the premise would be that, there was this crash there, and then they moved a load of kit down there, assuming that either there was a lot of stuff down there for them to deal with, or that it might happen again in the same place for some reason. That does seem...
That's strange that it's not the other way around.
Yeah, because then it would make perfect sense. Maybe they had a small base there already.
Yeah, and they just... Because, 20 years later, you could... If Area 51 came into effect in 1948, and that's when it was first fully built, then yes, definitely there's some sort of intrinsic link between those two. But 20 years later, you could say they're completely irrelevant to each other.
Yeah.
That there was a crash, people took note of it, and then 20 years later, the US government went, oh, that desert's going to be out of the way and away from most people. Yeah. Let's go there. But that's sort of all I have to say on that. What do you think overall in terms of Area 51? It's probably just a military training base, and maybe they're developing some sort of technology there.
Yeah, I think overall there's this idea that because the government are quiet about what happens there, then it must be something untoward, something that is being hidden. And I can understand that when, stuff is actually being hidden, but then you look at what it's claimed to be and it still makes sense. I think if there were evidence of extraterrestrials to come here and they had found extraterrestrials or an extraterrestrial, I'm sure there would be more than just the evidence that Area 51 could accrue. I'm sure there would be stuff in other places.
All sorts of places.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I don't know, would
aliens really land in the middle of the Western world, but in a really unpopulated area in the middle of the Western world?
Well, that makes sense.
Or just in that place, for example.
The big thing for me is, what would happen if we, or NASA, sent a craft to another planet, right? Had the belief that humans could survive on the planet, even if it's using their technology, right? Even if it's using technology we have. If we had someone crash there and then not respond to communications and not come back and not really communicate with us,
if you had that technology, you'd send more people to at least check it out.
That's what I think. So I can't imagine that
just one alien has been found in this crash and no other aliens have come.
Yeah. Think about what happens even when just like what's happening in America at the minute. A$AP Rocky went to Sweden and got arrested for assault. And straight away, President Trump's like, oh, we're going to get in touch with Sweden and try and get him released.
Yeah.
That's the kind of
mindset that you'd expect to see
from a civilization
that so far advanced,
can come together to build
these incredibly fast-moving.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So there's always a chance, but I don't think
there's not enough evidence to even delve down that.
No, I don't
train of thought. Really,
I don't think so.
No. Sticking with sort of a spatial theme, the moon landing hoax. Now this is a more interesting one because I feel like more people believe this hoax than, for example, the whole this conspiracy theory than with Area 51. Certainly in America, it seems to be certainly not a common belief, but I think maybe I heard a figure that maybe 12% believe that it was faked. 12% of Americans.
That's a lot of people.
That's hundreds of thousands of people, I think.
Yeah.
Is it? It might even be more.
Might even be more.
Yeah.
I think it's probably more. Because think about it. Yeah. Right. Think about it. 12% of the UK population would be
hundreds
10 million.
Of thousands. Oh wait.
70 million in the UK.
Ah.
About 10 million.
Right.
So it's got to be more. There's got to be millions of people.
Yeah, a ridiculous amount.
Probably. The US is a lot bigger than the UK.
Yeah.
I don't know what the population is, but it's probably practically hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
But there's sort of a few things people tried to pick on to get at this. There's obviously the flag. First of all, people jumped on the fact that the flag was perpendicular.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? It was
perpendicular to the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was parallel.
Parallel. Yes.
To the floor.
But it's so clear to see that it's got a pole attached to the top.
Yeah.
Like a horizontal pole.
And obviously they thought about it. Like the reason the pole is there is to make the flag stand up.
Yeah.
That's because they knew the flag wouldn't stand up. And you're not going to plant a flag on the moon that's going to just like
flop
bloop,
down. Yeah.
Bloop.
And then once people sort of disproved that, they then moved on to the fact that the flag was flapping. Appears to be flapping in the wind.
Yeah.
But again, that can be just think about momentum. If you're moving a flag, whether you're in low gravity or not, without any wind, if you're moving it, that energy is still, there's way less air resistance.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to maintain some of that energy.
Yeah.
And sort of flap around a little bit. One thing that I didn't actually know about this, people tried to pick up on, is the fact that in the photos, you can't see any of the stars.
Okay.
Beyond the moon, so you could see just a black carpet above the moon.
Okay.
But again, that's so easy to work out exposure settings.
Yeah, because it's going to be, well, it depends on where everything is in the sky.
Yeah.
But potentially it's going to be quite a lot less light. Depending on whether, just like day and night time.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
But
whether the sun's like, you've got to keep in mind you're in direct. They'd have to land on the bright side of the moon, wouldn't they?
Because it'd be too cold.
Yeah. So of course they'd have to have exposure low because they've got the whole power of the sun shining on them.
And the moon's so much brighter in
more
terms
reflective.
Of, exactly. Yeah.
And then another thing people jumped on is the fact that you can see a photo, right, of an astronaut looking towards the camera. And you can obviously see the reflection in his visor of the person taking the photo, and they're not holding a camera. It's mounted on their chest. Yeah. Do you really think they're going to take out like a fucking Nikon and just hold it?
Boy.
Yeah,
it's like one of them instant Polaroid
just like
ones.
huge padded fingers trying to click the button. So ridiculous. It just sort of shows the sort of level of intellect that the people who who sort of put forth these ideas are.
You know, I think. What it is, it's. I think with the moon, I won't say what I was going to say because I don't think it's relevant. I think with the moon landing, what it is there's so many foreseeable reasons that it would be done, right? You're talking about a time when
space race
during the Cold War, exactly, where basically two major countries, Russia and US. Are racing to the moon.
Yes,
pretty much is literally what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely imagine that someone, for example, maybe in the White House, might have said, "We need to just show that we can do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether we actually can."
Yeah,
I just don't think you can hire a load of actors and stuff to do the job of the scientists. But I just don't think you would get enough actors that would keep their mouths shut.
Yes, especially this long afterwards as well.
And I don't think scientists would want to
lie.
Exactly. Put their integrity at risk.
Because if they got found out, then their entire reputation's screwed and they'll never pull it back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I can't imagine that there's too many people were directly involved with it, for it to not have come out in some explicit way.
Yeah.
Really, it's just, theories and, what about this and what about that? To be honest, it's actually been confirmed by all of the countries that wouldn't want to confirm.
Well, yeah, like wouldn't Russia go, they faked it?
Yeah, no. Okay, so China have sent a probe up to the far side of the moon and taken a picture of the lander.
Right, and what possible reason would they have to substantiate
exactly
fake claims made by the US.
Because if you could prove, if as a country outside of the US, if you could prove that the US had basically faked all this, then I mean that's what you've got with a lot of probably some of the stuff that we'll come on to is other countries have this vested interest in making the Western people distrust their government, distrust the people in power, because you cause civil unrest. And like we're saying, if China has, they want to be the global superpower, they want to be the global superpower. If they have evidence,
then they're just going to come out with it.
Exactly. Whereas what actually happened is they sent a probe up,
saw it, and went, oh.
And then they posted the photographs. Yeah. China posted the photographs. That's like a conspiracy theorist basically posting the photographs.
Yeah, literally, and going, no, it's true.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I have is the fact that you have different directional shadows, but in a specific photo, I think you've probably heard of or maybe seen. There's a photo where you can see the shadow of an astronaut who's taking the photo on his suit, and then you can see a rock beyond him, and the shadows are going different directions. But again, this can be explained by Earth glow, and like you were saying, the fact that the moon is a very reflective thing.
Well, I mean, they weren't.
It's not like you had one going like straight on and one going the exact opposite. They just seem to converge rather than go in the same specific direction.
I think as well, at the time we weren't stupid. It wasn't that long ago, right? If they knew, okay, we want to go up and we want to take a load of pictures, I don't know whether they could have taken lighting. I don't know whether they did or not.
And I suppose, I bet there would be lights. Of course, there'd be lights on the what is it called? The thing that actually dropped down to the moon. Yeah. The lander, yeah. So it could be that. It could be all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, I think one of the biggest things is if you're going to fake a moon landing, you're not going to make mistakes like that. You're going to be cognizant enough to not make if you filmed like the flag thing. If you filmed the flag and you went, hold on, that's flapping around a bit. Should we spray it with clear paint so it's rigid, for example, or something like that? You'd be aware enough to those wouldn't be the mistakes you'd make. That's for sure.
Yeah, they'd probably be more subtle than so obvious.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, I think neither of us were ever going to believe in this.
I mean, you've seen the reactions from the people that were involved with the mission to people that say
it's like, was it Buzz Aldrin that punched that guy in the face? Brilliant. Because understandably, if you risked your life and I don't even think it's necessarily just that, because so many years after, like, he knows he didn't die or anything like that, but to sort of be told that what is probably his biggest life achievement is a load of bullshit and that you're a liar and a fraud.
Yeah.
Of course that'd fucking piss you off.
Yeah. And he's probably heard it so many times that
he's just sick of it.
It's understandably French now.
that was quite good, actually. That was genuinely quite understandably. La baguette. And then again, keeping with sort of spatial stuff still. Yep. And this is just amusing more than anything. Flat Earth.
Oh, okay.
So I watched a clip from a National Geographic documentary called Flat Earth versus Round Earth. Okay. And this is how this guy sort of tried to explain the flat Earth theory. So you have this obviously disc world, this flat world. The North Pole is at the center.
Okay.
All the continents are dotted around the sort of edge of the North Pole, and then you have Antarctica stretched around the outside.
Okay.
And apparently, this is me quoting him, and the stars are just lights in the sky.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Well, right.
What the fuck do you mean they're just lights in the sky?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing about the stars is that, what you were saying about people's ignorance or their lack of thought about what they did, right? Regardless of whether the Earth is flat or round, that doesn't mean you need an explanation for the stars.
Yeah.
That has no impact on on whether the Earth is flat or round.
The people just haven't thought about it. People have jumped on this idea and just are so obsessed with it that they're not even trying to work out the realisticness of it.
Yeah, the actually what they have to address in order to deal with it. And it's like the people have circumnavigated the globe. What happens on
Why
the
didn't
other
they
side?
fall off? Why hasn't anyone fallen off? Why aren't there any reports of anyone falling off the edge of the Earth?
Well, okay, let's unpack this a little bit. So first off, obviously you have to decide if you're a flat earther, you have to decide whether the Earth is flat and floating in space,
or whether it's flat and space is above it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you have to say, okay, if it's flat and space is above it, what's underneath us? And then you have to go, right, okay, well, is there anything underneath us, or is it just the void?
Oh, God. Oh, no.
And if it's the void, if you walk off the edge,
do
we
up
still
into
have
space,
some
or
sense of gravity?
Yeah.
Right? So is there another side to the flat Earth? Can you go all the way around it? Because then what you'd
and then
see...
is gravity pushing upwards on that other side, for example?
Exactly. Exactly right. So it's like, okay, is it just a flat world where like you can only travel in this one plane, or can you go around it? Because you have to explain how people have circumnavigated the globe. On top of that, if the Arctic Circle's in the middle and the Antarctic's around the edge, why are they about the same size? Because the center of a circle, if you basically take in a smaller circle,
and then a huge
exactly. So they're gonna have different volumes. You can also walk directly across the Antarctic.
Yeah.
You don't have to walk like round it, and it doesn't take longer to go around. Yeah, like if you circumnavigated the Antarctic, if you walked around the edge of the South Pole, basically, it's not gonna take. That's not the furthest you can walk on Earth. That's not the furthest distance you could travel. But if it was a disc world, like Terry Pratchett,
then that would be the longest possible
exactly
time you could be walking.
Whereas really what we see is the people that are taking the longest journeys in one direction, they see a whole plethora of different habitats.
Places.
Different climates. They pass the equator. They go around basically as many examples as you possibly could. They're not just flying around, like a frozen tundra. For the whole journey. There's just there's basically there's no real evidence
at all. And I think the thing that pisses me off the most about the sort of people that subscribe to this idea is they won't listen to any evidence that disagrees with them. For example, on that documentary I was watching, they did a boat test where they put someone on a boat with a big striped flag, and they sort of drove off into the distance, expecting to see if the Earth is round, the curvature as the stripes slowly disappear into the water, and that did happen. And then the people are basically trying to go, it's something to do with the temperature. What? Sorry. What do you mean it's something to do with the fucking temperature?
I would imagine...
And that's all they said as well. They didn't explain what they meant.
Okay, so I'd imagine... Let's give them the benefit of the doubt here. Let's say, like heat mirages.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, right, yeah.
So they're probably saying the temperature closer to the water is warmer, because water is good at holding heat when it has heat already. Obviously... We could be trying to imply
that heat, like almost heat waves, will cause some sort of distortion.
Exactly. Yeah. You're basically getting a heat mirage, and that's covering it up. But you can see a heat mirage.
Yeah.
You know it's a heat mirage. Yeah. Like you can see.
Whereas to literally see stripes of a flag like periodically going down one by one, you can't really argue with that.
No.
The only thing you could reasonably argue is it's the waves. But then you'd see it dipping in and out rather than consistently going down.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing I don't get is where like this. There seemed to be a big spark in the belief of flat Earth over the last few years, and I can't understand where that's come from.
I think what you've seen is increased connectedness of the global population.
So, more of these people are talking to more people and they have more of a platform. That's
Yeah,
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you'll keep seeing more with stuff like this. Think about it. Some of these things that we're going to go through, right? In the past, before the advent of the internet, before this hyperconnectivity that we've got going on, you would have had like, there would have been. I mean, I've never met a legitimate flat earther. Not in person. I've never actually had a proper conversation with someone who really believes that flat Earth is a real thing.
Yeah.
Before, most people would have been like that. Most people would have been completely unaware of some of these conspiracies. Most of these.
Whereas with the added connectivity, as you're saying, that modern sort of civilization has brought, that doesn't just give good ideas a platform; it gives all ideas a platform.
Yeah.
Sure, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and you're seeing this swelling of currents that are from this area of people that are very
susceptible to.
Yeah, I was going to say paranoid about government activity and what the big
being
picture is.
told what we're being told.
I think this is what I was going to say earlier. I think what it really comes down to is this: people want to believe there's something bigger going on. People want to believe, and I think there's a playoff between sort of Area 51, Roswell, and Flat Earth here, right? Either if you're that type of person that wants there to be something bigger, either you can go, there's something bigger out there, out in the stars, there's something bigger happening, and the government's hiding it from us, or you can say, there's something bigger happening here, the government's hiding from us, that the government are doing. And that's what you're seeing, right?
Right.
You're seeing this playoff between, is the bigger thing
the
here?
Government's doing something and they don't want us to know, or the government knows something and they don't want us to know.
Exactly. People just want there to be something bigger.
And I suppose that's maybe even these conspiracy theorists are a sort of direct or indirect progression of religion. Like you're saying, a want there to be something, a want of there being something more, and with science, increasingly so, in my opinion, disproving a lot of religious ideas. These people are moving on to scientific religion, so subscribing to really out there notions instead of religion,
right?
Because they don't have the ground to believe in these religions.
Right. So you're saying that people are looking for a thing with any evidence to believe in, something that they can work the evidence through, whereas religion, because it's faith-based, you can't work through the evidence. That kind of defeats the point of religion.
It's like the religion and the science coming together. The people who subscribe to religion are now looking at the world in a scientific way, but in a faithful way as well, putting a lot on the line, sort of thing. If that makes sense.
Right. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because that's what you've got. You've got people who are going, well, essentially, they're working on a little bit of evidence, and then the rest is just they believe that it happened, so it happened. Which is exactly the same kind of mindset as you'd see from a religious person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying that now that science is the advent of science, it's the age of scientific reasoning, that the people that normally would have been religious are seeing that maybe that's not the thing to go with,
but are still distrusting of current ideas.
Sure.
Okay, so obviously there's no need in even like talking about whether we believe in flat Earth, because we know we both don't. I think there's way too much evidence on the contrary.
Yeah, again, there's I think, coming back to what I was saying about the moon landing, I think if there was any evidence that something like that was true, I think there would be, dissenting countries that would be arguing the toss. It's not like...
It's individuals rather than establishments that are arguing this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so now to sort of move on to slightly more like conspiracy, like typical conspiracy theories.
Right.
What do you think this first one is?
I don't know.
JFK.
Okay.
So presumably you know the sort of rough of the JFK assassination.
Yeah, I think this is the first kind of difficult one. I think this is the first one where there's legitimately a vague argument.
Yeah. So obviously, to sort of briefly explain, not that anyone doesn't really know, but in case anyone doesn't really know, Kennedy was obviously struck by 2 bullets. Officially, there were 3 bullets fired. Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested, but killed by Jack Ruby. So to sort of briefly talk a bit about Oswald himself, he had a history of violence. He chased I think it was a half brother around with a knife when he was young. He was a qualified sharpshooter with an M1 rifle. And he went to Russia to try and renounce his American citizenship 4 years before the assassination. And he worked in the building that the gun was found.
Yeah, so he worked in the building that the gun was found. He worked in a bookstore that was overlooking the parade.
School book depository or something, I think it was called.
So he was up in the... It was the perfect place to take the shot from, basically.
Yeah.
I think some people discredit Oswald's involvement just by saying that he got the job after before the parade was announced. Sorry. So the story would be ideally the story would be the parade's announced. Mm-hmm. Oswald then applies for the job in order to get the vantage point. But actually what happened was Oswald had the job and it just so happened to be a good vantage point. Yeah. You're talking about his violent history there as well. Apparently, he allegedly attempted to assassinate another member of the US government.
It was a major general, and it was earlier the same year.
Yeah, it was about 6 months before.
Failed.
Yeah. I think he camped out outside his house, fired shots, missed, and then just fled.
Yeah, sacked it off.
Yeah, so I mean, if
there's clear intent there and a disregard for the taking of a human life.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
I think there's probably no question that Oswald was involved somehow.
Yes.
There's almost no question about that.
It's even probable that he fired shots.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also killed a policeman 45 minutes after JFK was assassinated.
Okay.
With a revolver.
Okay.
So maybe he was fleeing. A policeman was approaching him and he panicked, for example. Yeah. One thing that I find interesting, he was under active surveillance by the FBI leading up to the assassination. He was already under surveillance, but this was not relayed to the Secret Service. The FBI didn't tell the Secret Service, despite the fact that he worked on that route. But I think that was partially because the Secret Service didn't communicate the route to the FBI. So there was a lack of communication, which is suspicious in of itself a little bit. But maybe it was a different time. Maybe they just... I don't know. It's a strange thing.
Well, what can you say? Do you know when MLK was assassinated?
I think it was around the same time because...
I'm trying to figure whether it was after
Lyndon
or before.
B. Johnson opened an investigation when he became the president after JFK into the murders into the assassinations of both JFK and Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay.
So it must have been within a year or two leading up to JFK.
So I'm thinking we hadn't really seen anything of that scale in the Western world. You know, there's been... I think Lincoln was assassinated.
Yes, he was.
So Lincoln was assassinated, right? But that happened hundreds of years ago.
And between those two events, there'd never been anything, like you're saying, no assassination of a president, no big-scale attack, really, at all.
Yeah.
So why would they be so on guard?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I think there's really what I would say from that. It shows a certain level of arrogance about the country and the way it was being run, and arrogance about nobody would touch the president, no one would harm the president.
Yeah. I think another thing related to that is they realised that I think there was over 200 windows on the route, and the Secret Service went, there was loads of windows, so we're not going to check any of them.
Okay.
Strange. That's a thing that's strange in a similar way to the lack of communication between the FBI and the Secret Service, I think. There's just certain things that but again, that could, like you're saying, relate to just an arrogance of nothing's going to happen. Like, come on, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you could understand saying, but I mean, you just put more men into it. I think if you've considered it, I think that makes things more suspicious. I think arrogance would have you not consider
even think to check the windows.
Exactly.
But going, there's loads of windows, let's not worry about it.
Exactly. That seems kind of strange.
Yeah.
I don't think. Well, people think that that people knew about the attack. People in the government knew about the attack.
Yeah.
Prior to.
Well, there's all sorts of theories about that. There's obviously the theory that LBJ had something to do with it, that he wanted to basically rise to the presidency as he did. The route that they took in the car was criticised due to it having a lot of turns, which would have to keep the car very slow,
Right.
which I find quite interesting. But again,
Was this criticised afterwards?
yes,
before?
I believe so.
Okay.
Afterwards.
But at a parade, that's sort of the point.
But yeah, what it seems like, I sort of looked at the route, and it seems to sort of go really straight around the edge of the city, and then dip down through some corners into the centre of the city. You know where the grass was, where it all kicked off?
Yeah.
It looks like very much that's like a centre square of the city.
Right.
I obviously don't know much about American geography, let alone specifically Dallas.
Yeah.
But it certainly looks like they just go around the edge and then cut through into the middle, and then they were going to leave again. It doesn't look like it was planned specifically to orchestrate an assassination.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably picking a bit too far into it.
Yeah.
As we said, sort of 3 bullets. The first allegedly missed. The third was the headshot that killed JFK, and the second was the alleged magic bullet.
Well, okay. I thought JFK got shot twice.
Yes. The second hit him.
Okay.
That's why it's the magic bullet, because it hit
I'm
2
with you.
people. So
I'm
the first missed. The second goes through JFK's neck, through the governor's back, who was sat in front of him, out through his chest, into his wrist, and buried itself in his thigh. And people obviously said, but based on the angle of the where the shooter was and how they were sat and stuff, that wouldn't make sense. But upon inspection, the governor was sat lower than him. Than JFK, and they were sort of at slight angles.
Yeah.
So it does look like the trajectory could do that.
So the thing is, what you have to think about is that even if they were just sat next to each other, right? If you throw a ball and it hits something, what happens to the ball?
It goes whirling off. Of course,
Exactly.
it could bounce around and stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's the problem of how they found a more or less completely intact bullet. Was it in his stretcher or somewhere near the governor?
In his gurney.
So is it really going to, especially if it's bouncing all over the place, is it going to come out basically pristine?
Yeah.
Extremely unlikely.
Yeah. You know, the bullets get destroyed from being used.
From going through flesh.
Yeah.
So for it to go through a neck, a back, out a chest, through a wrist and into a leg,
Yeah.
and then out the leg somehow into a stretcher or whatever it may have been.
Yeah.
Very strange.
And I think there's X-rays around showing bullet fragments in the governor's wrist. So
This bullet that they found could have been a 4th bullet.
Well, what is it? Okay, so there's these 3 bullets.
Mm-hmm. And they found 3 shells in the window of where Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly was.
I believe someone else got injured as well by a
someone
gunshot.
got hit in the neck or something by a fragment of something.
Okay, so I think the neck was JFK's second shot.
I thought a pedestrian got hit by a fragment of something.
I thought it was in the shoulder.
maybe something like that.
around there.
So,
I think they were fine. I think they got treated in hospital.
yes, it was
were
a
fine.
minor injury.
Yeah. So you've got to ask the question there: was that a fragment, or was it?
Or was it a completely different shot, or
Exactly.
what was it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big thing with that is the lack of deformation on the bullet that was found with the governor.
Mm-hmm.
There's
no way in hell that could have been a bullet that went through two bodies.
Yeah. Multiple times.
Yeah. So then there's obviously the question of, did Lee Harvey Oswald work alone? Was there anyone else who was helping him? Were there any more shots fired? They used some a piece of software, a program that sort of isolated the audio slightly, and they found that there were 6 potential parts of the waveform that could have been whose echo formations, whether that's the right terminology or not, could be gunshots. So I find that quite interesting. So that's double what people think the amount of shots were. So there's 2 sort of theories of other people that could have been involved. There's obviously the grassy knoll, the person on the grassy knoll that people claim to have seen or something like that. All I know is people say that there was someone standing on the grassy knoll, and I think there's some accounts of them seeing someone take a shot or something like that, but it's very, very hearsay.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Umbrella Man?
No.
Have you not?
I haven't heard of the Umbrella Man.
So this was basically a man who was photographed with an umbrella. There was no rain that day. Okay. The umbrella was closed, and the only time it is seen open, is when JFK is parallel to the man with the umbrella.
Okay.
And then after the assassination, there's a photo of him sitting on the pavement, looking remarkably unfazed of being directly in the line of sight of a man getting his head blown off.
People react in strange ways, though.
He just sits on the pavement with his mate and just looks like he's chatting.
Yeah. I mean, that can be a response, to ignore what's happening.
Yeah.
The umbrella thing is strange, though.
Yeah. So there was some theories that maybe the umbrella was designed to cover holding up a gun. There were some theories that the umbrella itself was a dart shooting device or something like that, which people say could explain the hole in JFK's neck, for example. Because thinking about it now, actually, when you look at his reaction to the first getting hit first, it feels like he feels pain, but he doesn't think he's been. You'd react very differently. He just sort of does that and sort of turns and speaks to his wife, right? I don't think you'd do that if you thought you'd been shot. You'd duck down right down into the footwell, I think.
There's definitely, there could easily be some aspect of, he's the president. He's got a lot of image riding on his shoulders. You don't
I'm fine. They hit me, but I'm not dead. We just need to get away so we can deal with it.
Or you could say even the duck is him reacting to the bullet. It's reacting to the gunshot, not necessarily being hit.
Right.
So he's showing that he's heard the gunshot, because you can't just ignore something that everyone's heard.
Yeah.
But if he reacts as if he's hurt, let's say it was a failed assassination attempt, right? The American press or the American government can just release that no one was hurt.
Yeah.
But if he was injured, then it gives some credence to the approach, right? You can do this.
We've hurt him. If it bleeds, we can kill it, sort of thing.
Exactly.
So they thought that maybe the umbrella shot darts or something like that. But then the alleged man turned up at whether it was Supreme Court or whatever it is during the investigation. He turned up in quotation marks with the umbrella, as if he couldn't just bring a fake umbrella if it was like a tampered with umbrella, and explained that he had the umbrella to protest a certain political movement or something like that. I can't remember specifically what it was, but if you look historically, that is an accurate thing.
Okay.
And the reason he opens it when he's parallel with JFK is because he says he opened it when he knew JFK was looking.
Right. Okay.
So that could be completely written off, for example. But like you're saying, there's a lot of stuff that this is the first one that has like some things that you go. To be fair, like it could be a bit deeper than it seems.
What do you think about the assassination of Oswald? That's the big thing for me.
Yeah, okay.
That and the bullet.
Yeah,
that and the bullet.
I sort of skipped over that a little bit. Yeah.
Do you know much about Jack Ruby?
He was a mobster, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's difficult. It's difficult. So he could have just been a proper patriot who went, "You killed our president, I'm going to kill you." He could have been another just completely mental guy, or it could have been killing him to keep him quiet. I believe there was some affiliation between that mob that Jack Ruby was involved in and the Kennedy family.
Yeah, so if you look at biographies of Ruby, he was a big Kennedy fan. He was
Right.
very into the government at the time. And it does make sense to some extent, and given his violent background in terms of being involved with the mob,
Yeah.
That does make sense.
For him to just get very, very angry that this individual has done this to both his president and his country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to think, he's been found guilty of killing the president. Do you know what I mean? Like he's already
going to get
screwed.
killed.
Yeah, exactly. He's already screwed.
He's already got a death sentence.
Yeah.
Of course he is.
So then it becomes like, okay, why did you want to kill him sooner? What is it? Is it something in his personality? Is it something about him being the guy? Did he want to be the hero. So to speak?
Yeah.
Or is it, like we're saying, is it something? Is there some involvement with that mob group? That massive group?
Does it go deeper? Yeah. What happened to Jack Ruby? Do you know whether he was executed by the government or whether he just spent the rest of his life in prison?
I'm not sure.
I might look into that.
I'm not sure, but that's the big thing. The bullet is massive. Like, what did Joe Rogan say? Joe Rogan was talking about this, and he basically said,
well, he goes hunting and stuff, doesn't he? Yeah.
So he was saying like, oh, okay, is it possible that this is the one bullet in the entire history of the world that has gone through 3 people
and not exploded?
Well, 2 people once, twice.
Yeah.
And not deformed in any way. Yeah, it's possible, but shooters don't see it.
Even like the neck, you could say it hit no bone.
Soft tissue, yeah.
The chest, the back to the chest, I think it came out somewhere around his right nipple.
Okay.
So for that to not hit rib is fucking unlikely.
Yeah.
And then his fucking wrist.
Yeah.
Like you feel there's not really anywhere.
Well, your ulna only separates like from a quarter of the way up.
There's not many places you could hit someone in the wrist and it not hit bone.
Yeah.
And then into his leg, which is one huge bone. Fair enough, that could have just buried itself in the tissue due to its expenditure of momentum in the previous parts. But it's very, very unlikely. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's the big one. That's the big one. And it's the question is, okay, you can give it to them, or you can say, right, why is it there then? You can say, well, it couldn't have happened, so why is it there?
Where did it come from?
And where did it go? Where did it come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
Wow.
No, but I think the presence of that bullet is something that needs an explanation.
Yeah.
Really,
and I think that's the sort of most frustrating thing about this one specifically is so much time has passed and there's no way of finding more information really that no one's ever going to know.
No, really, all the experiments run now are like simulations. It's like, okay, could you actually take that shot from that distance? What would have happened?
So you can sort of add more evidence that maybe makes certain ideas more or less likely, but there's no way of ever knowing the absolute truth.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Both the people that were really known to be involved are no longer with us.
Yeah. What happened with was it JFK's brother, Jack Kennedy? Is that right?
Yeah.
He got assassinated as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was. Was it before or afterwards?
I thought it was after.
It might have been afterwards, and I think that I don't know much about that.
I don't really know anything about it.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that he was assassinated.
Happened, yeah. Depending on exactly how that went, that could add fuel to the fire, or it could sort of explain a lot of things.
That could even be someone going, no, I want to prove it's a conspiracy, so I'm going to kill another Kennedy.
A copycat. Yeah. It's a hard one. It is a hard one. I think, there's no, in my opinion, there's no question that Oswald was involved. No question.
Yes.
Whether he was alone or not, the standard story is 3 shots were fired.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you were talking about basically the waveforms and how they could
seem
have been
to reflect
6
shots. Yeah.
Now, what you have to bear in mind as well, it was a very built-up area where you
Lots
would
of
have
sound
reflections.
and lots of even cars backfiring, which could simulate a similar sound.
A parade's a party atmosphere, isn't it?
Yeah. So much sound going on that it's difficult to pinpoint that specific thing. Yeah. Now onto a sort of what I would consider, certainly compared to JFK, a slightly less believable one. 9/11.
Okay.
So I've only got three real points for this, but I'm sure we'll elaborate and go in different directions. So jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to. It just has to weaken the structure of the steel beams.
Yeah. I have a civil engineer friend, and he said that he basically sat down and figured this out.
Mm-hmm.
Figured out, obviously, it's his job to know how buildings would
and the
react
maintenance
to
of stuff.
Exactly,
like that,
exactly. And he was saying, actually, based on what happened, based on where the planes hit, based on the temperature of the fuel ignition, stuff
Not
like
surprising
that
the buildings.
it's exactly what probably would have happened.
Yeah.
So, like you're saying, it doesn't have to melt anything. It just has to make it weaker, which is, what happened. And
then, of course, when you have floors and floors collapsing on one another, of course, then it's going to have a ripple effect on the rest of the building.
Yeah, so probably what you're seeing from in opposition of it's melting steel beams, what you're actually seeing is planes hitting, one floor being weakened, that floor collapsing, and then the top floor's collapsing on top. That. And then that's why it looks like a controlled demolition.
Yeah.
Because the building is being knocked out from not knocked out from underneath itself, but collapsing down on itself.
Yeah. And then you obviously have the thing that sort of, because people say, oh, it was an inside job, the government did it. On the same day, the Pentagon got attacked.
Yes.
Which is where all the government people
officials are. Yeah.
Like that in itself just sort of goes, well, no, of course it wasn't.
I think as well. I think Middle Eastern nationals have claimed responsibility for the attack as well. So I think there was an interview with a couple of guys. I don't remember their names off the top of their head, but they were saying basically it was DC that was being targeted, not the World Trade Center. So they wanted to actually
distract the government's resources with that first attack on the World Trade Center to give them the opportunity maybe to attack the Pentagon. Is that what you're saying?
I think the planes that hit the World Trade Center were supposed to hit in Washington.
Oh, and they diverted because they weren't going to make it or something. Maybe.
So I believe what they claim is initially the plan was to crash into nuclear bases.
Jesus.
Okay.
Christ.
So, but they decided against that because they thought it might get out of hand. Right? This is terrorists
saying, no, we can't do that. That's a bit much, guys.
We can't fly into the nuclear base because it will murder a load of people.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
That's the whole point.
So that is slightly questionable. But at the same time, I can see, can you imagine if at the time that had happened and, that's a massive nuclear disaster for the US. It's a huge one. And
a really long lasting, something that we'd be seeing the effects of for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. And you could easily see the US government responding in kind to that.
Yeah.
Especially when and
then the whole world is fucked after that.
Exactly. They had some idea of who they thought it was. And they just would have potentially just responded.
And just done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Allegedly, officials were telling people to move because the tower was coming down. I think Alex Jones might have said that, actually. But the problem I have with that is, well, of course they'd say get away because planes have just crashed into a huge skyscraper.
Yeah.
Of course there's the potentiality of them collapsing.
Is this the second tower, the South Tower?
I'm not sure.
So,
unless the point that they were making is before the second tower had been hit, that they were saying.
So the North Tower was hit first.
Yeah.
And then some people evacuated the South Tower. As far as I'm aware, actually emergency services, I know after hitting the South Tower, because there was one stairwell still free, and the South Tower, the North Tower stairwell collapsed completely, and no one could escape. It was above the impact.
That's the one where I watched a documentary a few years ago there was a group of people, both civilians and firefighters, trapped in a little box of safety after the tower had come down. There was a section of the stairwell where it was completely dark, but there was enough structural integrity for them to not get completely buried.
Right.
And they made it out.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, they got found.
This is in the North Tower.
I thought that was because you just said
That
the
makes
North
more
Tower
sense.
got complete. I think it was the South
Yeah,
Tower.
that makes sense.
Because I think presumably they were making their way down the stairs after the North Tower had been hit. Then the South Tower was hit and came down on top of them.
Yeah, I think 14 people made it out.
Yeah.
14 people had started evacuate after the North Tower was hit.
And then what got out before the South Tower? Or
I don't know whether it was before it was hit, but they made it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the one thing in terms of that whole sort of situation that I sort of could sort of believe is, the plane that the passengers fought off the people and it crashed. The one thing I could believe about that is that the government blew it, shot it down, and then they just told people that the passengers fought off the attackers.
I think because I was super interested. I thought, obviously, in today's day and age, you think about, because there were 19 terrorists in total. Okay, there was about 5 on each plane.
Oh,
4 or 5 on
Jesus
each plane.
Christ!
So, because at first I'm thinking, okay, how does one hijacker get on a plane, hijack the plane, and crash it? How does one person do that?
Yeah.
So I had a little look into it. It turns out there were 4 or 5 people on each plane. I think 19 hijackers in total.
Yeah.
They from recordings, from evidence from mobile phone calls and the phone line on the plane. What people believe what we believe happened is that there were 4 or 5 hijackers on each plane, and they had multi-tools. So they had like a Swiss Army knife, basically.
Yeah.
Apparently they had pepper spray, mace, tear gas.
Yeah.
They attacked the attendants with these things. They stabbed a few people. They stabbed and killed the pilots. Now my question would be, obviously in today's day and age, you couldn't see people getting on planes with stuff like that. You couldn't, at least with the hand luggage, but this is a response to 9/11 that we're seeing.
Yes, that's why the security is so intense nowadays.
Exactly. So it's again, I think it's one that there's not that much hard evidence for. It's one that nobody wants to believe that 19 people on their own with maybe some backing from other places, but nobody wants to believe that it's just a small group of people that is orchestrating these attacks. They want to believe it's something bigger.
Yeah, and it goes back to, like we were saying, a theme with conspiracy theories, that people want to look deeper, whether there seems to be any hard evidence of it being deeper or not.
Exactly.
Okay, this is a bit of a silly one, and it's probably one of the most ridiculous conspiracy theorists I've ever heard about. I'm pretty sure you will have heard of this. Paul McCartney is dead. So this all started in 1969. There was a rumour that Paul McCartney died in 1966 in a car crash and was replaced by a lookalike named Billy Shears.
Billy Shears, yeah.
A farmer, apparently.
A farmer, okay.
A sheep farmer.
Okay.
Shears.
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah, so I'm making a joke.
Okay. Good.
And I've got 3 quotes here. The whole reversed song thing.
Okay.
So apparently one part, if you reverse it, is "Turn me on, dead man." Yeah.
I think just to preface you going on to the rest of these quotes, I think in any body of work, any body of musical work that is as, the Beatles wrote a lot of music, they produced a lot of music, they put out a lot of music. I think if you look hard enough, if you went through a discography that is as packed as that,
you're going to find
one
some
or
things.
two.
And they don't even sound like
that much.
Yeah. And then there's another one. Paul is dead man. Miss him, miss him, miss him.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much to say about them.
No.
And then there's one more that I got. I buried Paul.
How hard is it going to be to orchestrate? Obviously, like you'd have to decide what you want to say, record it, film it backwards, and have it also be words still.
Yeah.
So that you can sing them and it makes sense forwards.
Yeah.
It's a big stretch.
Yeah.
It's a big stretch.
It is like I say, it's one of the most ridiculous theories I've ever heard in my entire life. Paul McCartney looks and sounds exactly like he is always, and he's a very distinctly looking bloke. He's
a very distinct sounding guy as well.
Yeah, I don't think you just so happen that the same year he died, or really very close to when he died, not even just in the same year, you find someone from Liverpool who has the same voice, who can sing, who can write music, and who looks exactly like him. And is roughly the same age.
Who can play piano as well.
It's just absolutely ridiculous. Are you ready for the bonus round?
The bonus round?
Yeah, this is the bonus round. There's two things I've got here.
Oh, no.
For a bonus round.
I think I know what one of them is.
Well, I've given the bonus round a little title. Alex Jones. Man, myth, or legend?
The moment we've all been waiting for.
Yeah. So there's one that's quite serious, and there's one that's quite jokey and a bit of a piss take. Which way around do you want them?
I think we should talk about the frogs first. I knew it was coming.
Okay. So it's quite a simple situation, to be honest. So I've got.
I've only seen the video of him talking about it. I don't know what this is about at all.
Yeah, we've only heard the remix. So this is a quote from him that started the whole thing. The reason, this is presumably on his podcast that he said this. The reason there's so many gay people now is because it's a chemical warfare operation, and I have the government documents where they said they're going to encourage homosexuality with chemicals so that people don't have children. And then 5 years after that, he responds to the backlash he got from that by ranting about, they don't like me saying they're putting chemicals in the water that turn the freaking frogs gay.
Why frogs, though?
Presumably, he didn't want people to jump on and say, oh, you're saying people... Da, 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 da. He was like dumbing down his argument so it didn't sound as offensive, I think.
Okay.
I think he made it about animals, so he wasn't saying they're making people gay.
Right. I think, the biggest thing about it is there was a lot of... it was hard for the homosexual community to get rights, and it was hard for them to be seen as equal to other people. I don't think, if you're encouraging homosexuality, you don't make it hard for those people to have rights.
Yeah. You encourage it through law and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. I think the thing about Alex Jones is, and we've discussed this briefly before, I can't work out whether he's just very good at publicizing himself and through controversy, or whether he is just a little bit mental and just jumps on these things and can't reverse himself out of it once he's gone down that road.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, you watch him, you've seen some of the clips when he was on Joe Rogan with Eddie Bravo.
Yeah.
And I think when he's talking about Eddie choking him out and stuff like that, I think it becomes abundantly clear that he is, at least in part, a character.
Yes, and this is something we've discussed again before. Yeah, he definitely exaggerates, whether he is that sort of person or not by his core, he definitely exaggerates those parts of him for publicity or for the sake of getting people talking about him and stuff like that.
For sure.
So yeah, very very short.
Does he know what they're putting in the water that's making people gay?
Well, that's
just chemicals.
Chemicals.
They're putting chemicals in the water.
Yep.
That make people gay.
Yep, and turn the freaking frogs gay.
Okay, well, if they did know about chemicals that you could put in the water,
and if he had the government documents as he claimed, why is he only referring to them as chemicals? Why isn't he saying they're putting CBD 21498 in the water to turn the freaking frogs gay, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah. A very short one, but I just thought it'd be quite.
I don't think they're turning the frogs gay.
Neither do I.
Or the people.
No. So the other one, the sort of more serious one, is Sandy Hook. So to sort of give a little bit of background on the situation, because I don't think you really know. You know it was a mass shooting, but I don't think you know much beyond that, do you?
I did a little bit of reading now. But...
Right. So it was a 20-year-old named Adam Lanza who shot a total of 26 people, 20 children aged 6 or 7, and 6 adult staff. The shooter had Asperger's, suffered from anxiety, depression, and obsessive compulsive disorder. Alex Jones claimed that it was a fake shooting with actors. And we should, of course, preface this with it's a completely ridiculous false claim with based on no real evidence.
Yeah, I also like to say that Alex Jones actually did reverse his claim on that.
Yes, and he did apologise. Yes, yeah. So this is one of the rare occasions that he does reverse out of the train of thought that he's gone down. Yeah, I think he probably just got a bit too wrapped up with it in his head, maybe.
What's the reason? You know, what's the motivation
to cause a fake conspiracy? Mass shooting?
Yeah, the only reason I've been thinking about it, the only reason I can imagine that you would do that is to encourage gun control. It's the only reason I can. It's the only legitimate reason I could possibly imagine that there would be something bigger behind that.
And so many Americans don't want gun control.
It would have to be someone on the left.
Yeah.
It would have to be someone. And it could be, but it's not. Yeah, it's not likely. No. It's just, there are people who are messed up, and if you look at his, like you were talking about, if you look at his history, he was obsessed with violence. He had basically no friends. In the weeks and months leading up to the shooting, he fell out of contact with his one friend. So he was basically,
and he'd killed his mum that day. I think.
Did he?
I believe so.
Did he?
I believe so. I think he'd killed his mum that day or the day before, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, I think he shot her.
Right.
I believe it was directly before. I think he basically shot her and then went and committed the mass shooting.
Right. Well, I mean, you can imagine, right? Let's say he's basically murdering all the things that he's killed himself. He's killed the only person that probably really cares deeply about him.
And presumably he killed the people that, in his eyes, were having the experience that he never got. In terms of, I'm killing all the happy children because I was never a happy child.
Yeah, maybe.
Example.
I don't think he left a note or anything like that. He didn't leave
any sort of.
Nope.
Nope. That's quite interesting. I suppose if you're in that mindset and you are that disturbed and that fucked up, that you just go and do it.
Yeah, I think it sort of depends on what his actual internal motivation was. Like you're saying, if he's just murdering the people that are having the experience that he didn't, then
there'd be nothing to write, I suppose.
There could be, but it depends, right? If you want to cause as much chaos as you can, you probably don't leave a note.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's done, right? It's made people believe, a subset of people, it's made them believe that it was a false flag. It was something that didn't really happen based off of one guy. It's something else happening here. Again,
due to the lack of explanation. Sure.
Again, it comes back to nobody wants to accept that one guy could come into an elementary school,
and cause this havoc and murder
20 children.
Yeah.
Murder 20
young
children.
Exactly. Really young children.
Exactly. Yeah.
Defenseless.
And then I think he also had a big spreadsheet with a list of mass murderers and serial killers on there.
Right.
And basically had like their names, the weapons they used, how many kills they got. And I think
almost like a scoreboard.
Yes, that's what the police think it was.
Right.
The police
I want to outdo a lot of these I want to be famous. I want to outdo all these famous murders.
And then think about what he actually did. He went and murdered school children.
Really young school children. Something that I don't think there's been a mass shooting of
like that.
Of like elementary school children.
Yeah,
it's always
normally
been high school.
Yeah, because fair enough, I can understand if you had a bad time in high school, right? I can understand going
who
back.
has a bad time in primary school?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So like, kids are really innocent, and people, even if they were, slightly bullied or whatever, there's always accepting kids in elementary school, in primary school, at least here. There's always somewhere for people like that to go, generally speaking. In secondary school, people are, or high school, it will be over there. People are a lot more invested in how they're seen by other people. So I can understand that. I can understand being vindictive about the people that maybe ruined your teenage years.
But yeah, exactly, because you're at an age during those years where you're it's the first time you go from child towards an adult, so you have more of a personality, you have more opinions. People can be meaner, whereas in the younger years of school, you're just a kid at school.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really any bullying as such,
Even if there is, it's very surface level. It's not very...
And it's children learning how to act in the way that they should act.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It's a... Because even think about, like, the implications of that being a government-led fake shooting. So they've employed 26 families to all spend the rest of their lives pretending that their relatives have been murdered. That's such a ridiculous thought. Completely ridiculous.
It's a hard thing to do as well. I think, you're never going to have...
And if they are actors, then their real family members will know that that's bullshit. There's no way you could contain something like that.
Yeah.
He just got it wrong.
Yeah, I think
it's good that he admitted to it and sort of apologized and is clearly genuinely aware that he got it very, very, very wrong, and not just because of the backlash and the bad effect that had on his reputation and stuff like that. Not that he has a particularly good reputation, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, he stands by what he believes, and I don't think, even given because he sees himself, I think, as a man who's doing a great service to the world.
To unveil all these things.
Exactly. Yeah. So if he really genuinely did still believe that, I don't think he'd go back on it. I don't think he would.
I don't think he'd go back on anything that he genuinely believes.
Yeah, because I think he does think that at least part of what he does is a service.
Yeah.
I did it again.
What?
Repeat myself.
Oh no. You're just going in loops forever.
I'm just going in loops forever.
But that's
I'm just going in loops forever.
No. But that's all I've got. That's all the conspiracies. I thought it'd be a good idea to get like the main ones.
Okay.
So what do you think overall then? Conspiracy theories.
Well, I have one.
Of course.
Like
Yeah.
to talk about it.
Yeah,
so I didn't think you'd think about this one, but it does kind of tie into something that you wanted to talk about in the future.
Okay.
Anti-vaccination.
Okay.
So the conspiracy there is the idea that either vaccines are somehow bad for us, they cause autism, or they cause some kind of disease that is being... Now, the big one, that's the thing that most people say is autism, stuff like ADHD.
Yeah.
What people say is that, cases of autism spiked with
when
the introduction of
vaccinations. Okay.
Yep. What you have to bear in mind, the big one there is, at the same time, we're developing psychiatry, we're developing medicine, we're developing testing. Everything in medicine is constantly moving forward, right? So who's to say whether this spike in, because there is a spike in cases of autism around the same time.
Right.
Who's to say that that's because of the vaccinations? Why does that have to be because of the vaccinations? Even think about it just in the last sort of, what are we, 2020 now, so it's 40, 50 years, right? so much has changed. The way we eat has changed. The things we eat have changed.
Mm-hmm.
The way we're treated has changed. Obviously, introduction of vaccinations. There's a lot of
the way we treat our health in general
has changed completely. Now, there could be a range of different explanations for it, but I think the one that makes the most sense is just the increase in diagnostic capability that we have, and the increase in the rate at which these previously relatively unknown conditions, especially in terms of like viewing people who presented with them, how much they've come into the light.
I think I understand what you're getting at. So you think it's more ability to detect these conditions as opposed to an actual increase in those conditions?
Yeah, it's the detection and visibility of the people who have them.
Because, for example, someone could be autistic and you'd have no idea. Some people are quite severely autistic and you can tell, but some people you'd never know.
Yeah.
So you're saying that some people that previously wouldn't have been necessarily diagnosed with autism or something else were now then being diagnosed.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think. It doesn't really make sense that because why for what reason would pharmaceutical companies want to make people autistic?
Yeah, that's
for what reason would they want that? Why would these vaccines be pushed? And I mean, what you're seeing now is you're seeing anti-vax parents who are refusing to get their children vaccinated and then having their children die.
Yeah.
Now, I'll touch on it a little bit because I was talking about it the other day. We were talking about herd immunity, and I didn't really explain what that was because this is the big problem with the anti-vax conspiracy, or the idea that it's a conspiracy. Herd immunity is the idea that, if most people are vaccinated against a disease, then that disease won't come into a population. It won't come into an area.
Yes.
And it won't be able to, if it does come into an area, it won't be able to reproduce. It won't be able to spread.
Yes.
It will die very quickly as the people with the disease die.
Yes.
So basically, if you have, a majority of your people vaccinated, then
you're fine.
It's not just a case of I'm vaccinated against measles, I'm not going to get measles. It's not that simple because
I'm not going to get infected with measles, so I can't infect other people and move it to other places.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's actually important for us to maintain a certain proportion of the population with vaccinations.
Yes.
The problem is now that what this is going to lead to, this is why conspiracy theories can be super dangerous, is it ends up leading to, the introduction of the pathogens back into society.
And then can spread the more people who decide not to vaccinate.
Not only that, but how evolution works is obviously a more successful virus, a more successful pathogen will reproduce more. They're more like, you're seeing it with medication resistant bacteria.
Yeah.
That's what you would end up having. You would end up having strains develop that were resistant to the current vaccinations. We'd have to pour a load of more money into developing more vaccinations against the specific, and it's super dangerous. It's super dangerous.
Agreed.
And I mean, there's not even, I mean, the piece of evidence is the increase in cases of certain mental health conditions alongside the same vaccination, like we're talking about autism.
Yes.
But that's just like correlation isn't causation. Just because they both rise at the same time
does not mean they're related in any way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, Egypt.
That's a good example of conspiracy theories actually being dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
But no, Egypt.
So that's next week.
Okay.
So to sort of keep in the sort of keep along with the theme of things not being all that they see, next week we're going to talk about the pyramids and the sort of potential true purpose of the pyramids, the potential true purpose of Stonehenge and other sort of ancient landmarks, and what they could be and what they could have been, and how we can work that out. But yeah,
Why were they built?
exactly.
Who built them?
Exactly.
Is it aliens? Tune in next time.
To find out. Jesus Christ.